Hi, welcome to Principles of Defensive Breathing, the best way to breathe in bad air, what your amazing nose can filter. I'm Lisa Bowen, breathing educator and certified health and wellness coach at Breathing Retraining Center. I help athletes, musicians, parents, and people with breathing-related health conditions learn to apply a set of self-management tools designed to correct poor breathing habits. The foundation of defensive breathing in polluted environments is nasal breathing, and today I'm going to prove the superiority of nose breathing over mouth breathing by the numbers, talking about the size of germs and pollutants suspended in air and contrasting what our uncovered noses and mouths are able to filter. Let's get started. Disclaimer alert. I'm a wellness coach, not a healthcare professional, here providing educational content about healthy breathing habits, not medical advice. Consult your doctor about any breathing difficulties. This information is obscure, but critically important. It's fairly easy to imagine how inhaling pollutants can contribute to lung cancer or respiratory illness. But did you know that about a quarter of all deaths worldwide from heart disease and stroke are also attributable to air pollution, according to the World Health Organization? What happens is that when particles pass through the nose or mouth and enter the lungs, they can get into the bloodstream along with oxygen and cause an obstruction or inflammation. So nose breathing, by blocking more particles from entering the lungs over mouth breathing, should save lives. Here's a news story from February 2020 that caught my attention. A massive coronary blindsided a 39-year-old woman with no history of heart disease who'd had her annual checkup 2 weeks prior and been given a clean bill of health. It literally came out of nowhere, she said. She woke up in the hospital 4 days after blacking out in her car and was incredulous when doctors told her she'd had a 100% blockage in one of her coronary arteries, requiring a stent. In fact, the situation was such an outlier that she went on the Today Show to talk about it. Did anybody mention the pollution angle? The particle inhalation possibility? No. Is pollution a real risk to our health, not just unpleasant or an inconvenience? Yes. I'm sure it's obvious by now that I'm a nasal breathing zealot, but I don't want you to think I'm a mouth breathing shamer. I don't think anyone can nose breathe all the time. And when I notice I'm mouth breathing, I just get curious about it and switch back to nasal breathing if I can. If you saw part 1, the formula in this series, you know that mouth breathing mobilizes the fight or flight system in an emergency or when we're upset. That happens to everyone, and it's an automatic nervous system function. When I cry, I'm mouth breathing. When I get upset when my teenage daughter posts something on Instagram I don't think is appropriate, I know I start mouth breathing. That's natural. For me, the issue is how long does it take for me to catch it? This transition from mouth breathing or a mixed breathing pattern to primarily nasal breathing is progressive, similar to when people start healthy eating. Lapses are human and to be expected. Now, let's get into the details. There are 2 types of pollutants in the air: gases, which we can't do too much about, and particles, which have some mass and can be filtered to a certain extent. Let's explore this microscopic world. Particles are solids suspended in air, measured in a unit called microns. A micron is a millionth of a meter. Microns are truly microscopic. To put things in perspective, a grain of fine beach sand is 90 microns in diameter. A human hair is 50 to 70 microns. We're said to be able to see items that are 40 microns or larger. An inch is huge in comparison. 25,400 microns. A red blood cell is 5 to 10 microns. Particulate matter health officials are concerned about ranges from 10 microns down to 0.1 micron. Many studies refer to PM 2.5. That's particulate matter 2.5 microns in diameter or less, 45 times smaller than a grain of sand, as the most dangerous to human health. Now let's examine the measurements of typical allergens and pollutants, plus our filtration tools in microns. For some perspective, let's talk about the ratings of protective equipment first. Air filters. The U.S. Department of Energy set the standard of filtering at a minimum of 0.3 microns for HEPA air filters. HEPA stands for High Efficiency Particulate Air Filters. There are more upscale, expensive, and commercial filtration systems that are not as widely available, but possible to explore. The best mask is considered to be the N95. According to the American Industrial Hygiene Association, it can filter down to a range of 0.1 to 0.3 microns, so that's a little bit better than the HEPA room filter. Of course, that's assuming the mask is being worn correctly. Remember, we can't even see something with the naked eye less than 40 microns. Okay, here's where it gets interesting. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and many scientists who've published research have found that the naked nose can filter down to 0.5 microns. I don't think this is an absolute. As one study put it, the nose can filter out most particles above 0.5 microns. If you think about it, there are all sorts of variables, from nostril size to quantity of nose hair, whether somebody trims it, etc. Now, the mouth doesn't have a filter, although practically speaking, things can get caught in our throat. I'm assuming each of us has experienced swallowing something small, maybe a hair or a granule of something that gets caught in our throat and we cough it out. So there's a practical component, but those items are relatively huge in the scheme of things, maybe 40 to 50 microns. It's the super small particles, less than 10 microns, that can enter the airway, get into the lungs, then the bloodstream, and cause a health crisis. Here's a graphic from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency that shows when we nose breathe, we tend to inhale fewer particles than when we mouth breathe. There's a link below to a copy of the document you can look at more closely later. But for right now, notice that the dotted line that tracks particle deposition in the lungs from nose breathing is, for the most part, consistently lower than the shaded bars that reflect particle quantities deposited in the lungs and throat from mouth breathing. I'm also noticing that the shaded areas top out on that bottom scale at about 10 microns. I don't know why. It could be something larger than 10 microns is too large to enter the tiny airways of the lungs that get progressively smaller the deeper you go in. That's worthy of further investigation. Remember, the size of a red blood cell is only 5 to 10 microns. Now I want to cover the sizes of everyday pollutants and allergens and talk specifically in a common sense way about what might be filtered by the nose but not the mouth. Which ones our naked nose absolutely can't filter because they're way too small, and where's the gray area? I'm using two sources of information. On the screen now is a chart from the EPA, and the second is a list from the Engineering Toolbox. I'll provide links to both, and I welcome feedback and exploration together about what this all might mean. Here is the same EPA chart, and I overlaid the pink on the right to highlight everything 0.5 microns and larger to show the range that the nose is said to be able to filter. The light blue band in the middle is 0.3 microns to 0.5 microns to add the particles that HEPA room filters can clean. And then the darker blue band on the left adds the 0.1 to 0.3 micron range that the N95 mask is rated to pick up. I look at this and I think, wow, our nose can be an incredible filter if we use it. Now let's explore what's covered in the pink band. Pet dander, pollen, and human sneezes are all included in what the naked nose should be able to filter. Pet dander size starts at 0.5 microns and can be as large as 100 microns. Pollen is 10 to 1,000 microns. A human sneeze is 10 to 100 microns. This is all information from the Engineering Toolbox. This jibes with my personal experience. When I started nasal breathing more, my plant and pet allergies did diminish and practically disappeared over time, and I get way fewer colds now. Here's more types of particles from Engineering Toolbox that the nose may be able to filter, including antiperspirant, asbestos, many auto and car emissions, copier toner, mold and plant spores, smoke from synthetic materials, and talcum dust. When I cover up that zone above 0.5 microns on the right, it creates a list of what the nose doesn't filter. A short list includes gases, tobacco smoke, and smoke from other natural organic materials, and viruses. Unfortunately, that's a lot of what we're heavily dealing with right now. I'm recording this in August 2021, and there's a lot of smoke in the air. Smoke is one of those things that's variable. The size of smoke particles is affected by what's being burned. While our nose is not up to the job of filtering smoke from the burning of natural or organic materials at 0.01 to 0.1 microns, smoke particles from burning synthetic materials seems to be larger and are more able to be filtered at 1 to 50 microns. We're also all concerned about the COVID-19 virus. Viruses are incredibly small. The virus category in general ranges from 0.005 microns to 0.3 microns, according to the engineering toolbox, and the coronavirus ranges from 0.06 microns to 0.14, with an average of 0.125, according to a news article I read last year. When they're carried on an aerosol or water droplet, which has a huge size range of 0.005 to 50 microns, it seems like maybe there's sometimes a way to possibly have a chance of evading them if the whole package of virus plus droplet is considered. That's the idea behind wearing the fabric and surgical masks. Remember, too, that nasal breathing releases nitric oxide to sanitize air, which mouth breathing does not. The orange type on this slide lists items that the nose may filter, and the blue line items are things that the N95 may filter. Obviously, given the size ranges of smoke, virus, and aerosols, respiratory protection in wildfires and COVID is a crapshoot at best. Just a reminder, I'm not guaranteeing anything or making firm assertions with certainty. I'm a student and interested observer. This whole presentation is about the relative benefits of nasal breathing over mouth breathing. My point here is not to say that nasal breathing is foolproof to protect us from all pollutants, but that it's definitely more protective than mouth breathing, and we have the ability to choose. There are lots of other pollutants that we may or may not be able to filter with our noses or a mask that can be smaller or larger than 0.5 microns. Smoke, aerosols, and dust from fine to coarse are huge categories as examples. This category also includes bacteria and paint pigment. So that's the bird's eye view of our tools to help us breathe in polluted environments. I hope this provides more insight into the defensive breathing formula. Breathe with your nose because of its built-in filter, stop breathing with your mouth that has no filter, and breathe less by volume to reduce your exposure to the smallest particles and gases that are able to pass through. That's it for this topic today. To tap into what we're doing at Breathing Retraining Center, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and our channel on your favorite social media for articles and announcements. And if you experience more breathlessness than you'd like and want to explore individual online coaching or a class, get in touch through breathingretrainingcenter.com. See you on the next video.